The airport hummed with the rhythm of early morning travel. The metallic roll of suitcases, the distant echo of flight announcements, and the soft murmur of hundreds of tired voices blending into one steady hum. Dr. Maya Thompson walked through it all with quiet purpose. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, sharp, confident, controlled. She wasn't just another traveler. She was a woman on a mission, the kind who would build an empire from nothing but grit and grace. Her black tailored suit fit perfectly. Her posture regal, her eyes steady. She was used to being seen, but not always understood. Maya clutched her boarding pass. First class, seat 1A, printed under her own company's name, a private affiliate airline she often used for her business trips. Today's meeting was critical, a merger negotiation that could redefine the future of her company. She didn't have time for anything but efficiency. As she approached the gate, the flight attendant scanned her ticket and smiled, a polite, almost robotic greeting. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Thompson." Maya nodded softly and stepped into the narrow, perfumed cabin of the plane. The warm air carried the faint scent of coffee and leather. The first-class section gleamed, wide seats, soft lighting, and passengers already tucked into comfort. Maya placed her carry-on neatly above her seat, then settled in, adjusting her tablet and planner on the tray. Her mind was already at work, thinking about presentations, numbers, people, until she noticed her. A young flight attendant, blonde, neatly uniformed, with a practiced smile, walking briskly down the aisle, eyes scanning each seat. Her name tag read Rachel. At first, Maya thought nothing of it. But then Rachel's expression changed the moment their eyes met, polite professionalism fading into suspicion. Rachel stopped by Maya's seat. "Excuse me," she said, tone sharp but coated in sugar. "I think you may be in the wrong section." Maya looked up, calm but curious. "No, this is my seat. First class, 1A. Rachel frowned, tilting her head slightly as if she hadn't heard correctly. "I understand, but this section is reserved for first-class passengers only." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Yes, and that's what my ticket says." She offered the boarding pass, extending it with quiet composure. Rachel didn't take it. She simply looked at it, then at Maya, her gaze flickering with a quiet disbelief that said more than words ever could. Passengers nearby began to glance over. Some pretended not to stare. Others whispered behind polite smiles. Rachel folded her arms. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to please move to your assigned seat before we begin boarding the next group." Maya inhaled slowly. "This is my assigned seat." The air between them stiffened. Rachel sighed, that kind of theatrical exhale, meant to draw attention. "If you could just step aside, I'll have to double-check with the system. We don't want to hold up the flight." A man 2 rows back chuckled under his breath. Another muttered, "Here we go again." Maya rose, not because she was told to, but because she refused to let her dignity be debated from a seat. She handed Rachel the ticket, calm as glass. Rachel snatched it, scanned it, then blinked. For a brief second, confusion replaced her arrogance. The system showed exactly what Maya had said. Seat 1A. Paid. Confirmed. But Rachel couldn't let it go. She forced a tight smile. There must be a glitch in the system. This ticket doesn't look right. Maybe it's been rebooked. Maya's voice was low, measured. "No, it's right." Rachel's patience thinned. Her smile dropped. "Ma'am, I need you to wait outside while we sort this out." Silence rippled across the cabin. The captain's voice faintly crackled from the cockpit. Routine announcements, flight time, weather, unaware of the quiet humiliation unfolding behind him. Maya's jaw tightened. "You're asking me to leave the plane?" Rachel folded her arms again, her voice quieter but edged. "I'm asking you to cooperate. You can wait outside for a few minutes, and if everything checks out, we'll let you back on." The words "will let you back on" landed like stones. For a moment, Maya looked around, eyes meeting strangers' faces that looked away too quickly. No one spoke. No one intervened. The silence of complicity filled the cabin like fog. Then she smiled, not with amusement, but with understanding. "Of course," she said softly. "I'll wait." She gathered her bag, her tablet, and her comm. Every step toward the exit echoed, louder than the one before. The world outside the plane was a blur of motion. Luggage carts, echoing footsteps, and a mechanical voice announcing another boarding call. Behind her, whispers followed. Some pitied her. Others judged. But no one knew the truth of who she really was. Rachel called after her. "We'll call you once we confirm your seat." But Maya didn't look back. She didn't need to. She found a quiet corner near the terminal window, sat down, and looked out at the tarmac, at the plane that had just rejected her. Her reflection stared back in the glass. Calm eyes, poised face, and a heart that burned silently. For a moment, memories flickered, moments from years before. The doors that had closed. The rooms she wasn't meant to enter. The voices that said she didn't belong. She'd fought through every one of them. But this time, it wasn't just about her. She pulled out her phone, opened her inbox, and checked the final update from her assistant. A merger confirmation. The airline's name glowed on the screen. The very one whose flight she'd just been forced off of. Her fingers hovered above the phone. A faint smile curved her lips, not out of vengeance, but purpose. The voice over the loudspeaker announced, "Final call for Flight 432 to New York." Rachel's voice echoed faintly from inside the jet bridge, loud and sure, the tone of someone certain she'd done her job. Maya whispered to herself, "You have no idea what's coming." Outside, the engines rumbled to life, the scent of fuel and wind mingling in the air. Passengers continued to board. Life moved on, unaware that in just a few hours, everything for that crew, for Rachel, was about to change. The humiliation that began in seat 1A would soon end in a boardroom. And Maya Thompson, calm, brilliant, and unshakable, was about to show the world that grace doesn't mean weakness. Soft pause. Tone shifts toward quiet intensity. Because sometimes the woman you underestimate, the one you dismiss without a thought, is the same woman who signs your paycheck. And as Maya stood, tucking her phone away and walking toward the executive terminal, one thing became clear. This flight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The air inside the cabin felt different when Maya stepped back in. Cooler, heavier, like judgment had a temperature. And everyone could feel it. Passengers avoided her gaze as she walked down the narrow aisle toward her seat. Rachel stood waiting, arms folded, that same tight smile plastered across her face. "Oh, you're back," Rachel said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "We had some confusion earlier. I just need to verify your real ticket." Maya didn't flinch. "I already gave you my ticket, Rachel. It's valid." Rachel's smile hardened. "Well, according to the system, there's no record of a Dr. Thompson in first class. So unless you can prove otherwise, I'll have to ask you to move to economy." The words hung heavy in the air. Passengers shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. The tension was thick enough to taste. Maya exhaled softly. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and opened her digital confirmation. The barcode gleamed in the light. Her name, seat number, everything perfectly clear. "Here," she said, calm but firm. "This is the same ticket you scanned earlier. Seat 1A, paid in full." Rachel didn't even glance at the screen. Anyone can edit a screenshot, ma'am. That word, ma'am, came sharp, condescending, like she was scolding a child. Maya's voice remained steady. "I suggest you check your manifest again." But Rachel was already shaking her head. "Listen, I'm not going to argue with you in front of other passengers. Either take a seat in economy or step off the plane, so we can sort this out." A middle-aged man in the row across leaned toward his wife, whispering. She should just move and stop causing a scene. Maya heard him. Everyone did. Her chest tightened, not from anger, but from exhaustion. This wasn't the first time she'd been judged before being understood. But each time, it cut a little deeper. She spoke quietly. "You're embarrassing me for no reason. I've done nothing wrong." Rachel snapped. "You're holding up the flight. We have procedures for this." Maya's voice was soft but unwavering. "And I have rights." For a moment, they just stared at each other, one fueled by authority, the other by dignity. Rachel turned abruptly and gestured toward the cockpit. "Captain, can you come out here, please?" The cabin fell silent. The door opened, the captain stepped out. A tall man in his 50s with a graying beard and the kind of tired eyes that had seen it all. "What seems to be the issue?" he asked. Rachel spoke before Maya could. "This passenger is claiming she's supposed to be in first class, but her ticket isn't showing up properly. I've asked her to move, but she's refusing." The captain looked at Maya, then at Rachel. "Did you recheck the manifest?" "Yes, sir." Rachel lied smoothly. "Her name isn't listed." The captain sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am," he said gently to Maya, "would you mind stepping off the plane while we confirm your booking? It'll just take a minute." Maya stared at him, at the badge on his chest, at the authority in his voice. Even he didn't question Rachel's word. Passengers whispered again. Someone muttered, "Why is she making this so difficult?" Maya felt a lump forming in her throat, but she swallowed it down. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about being seen, truly seen. She rose slowly, gathering her things. "Fine," she said, her voice steady. "But I hope you understand how this looks." Rachel smirked. "We're just doing our job." Maya paused, looking her dead in the eye. "No, you're doing what you think your job is. There's a difference." The captain shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. As Maya stepped toward the exit, a woman in the third row, quiet until now, spoke up. "She's right," the woman said softly. "You scanned her ticket." "I saw it." Rachel turned sharply. "Ma'am, please stay out of this." But the woman didn't back down. "You're treating her unfairly. Everyone can see it." Murmurs spread again. A few heads nodded, but no one else spoke up. Most just watched, afraid to take a side. Maya gave the woman a grateful nod. "Thank you," she said gently. Then she turned and walked toward the door, her back straight, her pride intact. Rachel followed her to the jet bridge, her heels clicking against the floor like the punctuation to every insult unspoken. At the gate, Maya stopped. "You've already scanned my ticket. You know it's real. Why are you doing this?" Rachel shrugged. "Ma'am, I don't make the rules." Maya's expression softened, but her words cut clean. "No, but you choose how to follow them." For a second, something flickered across Rachel's face. Guilt, maybe, before it vanished behind professionalism. The captain spoke again. "We'll sort this out, Dr. Thompson. Please wait by the counter." Dr. Thompson. It was the first time anyone had addressed her by her title, the same title that should have commanded respect from the start. She nodded, stepping aside. Through the glass window beside her, she could see Rachel laughing with another attendant, pointing in her direction, whispering. Maya's heart ached, not from embarrassment, but from disappointment, because this wasn't new. It was a story she'd lived too many times in too many ways. But this time would be different. The loudspeaker above announced final boarding for Flight 432. Rachel disappeared back into the plane, still smirking. Maya exhaled slowly, composed herself. She opened her phone again, scrolling through her emails, the confirmation from her assistant still glowing on the screen. Her company's logo appeared above it, the very same logo painted on the tail of the plane outside. She smiled faintly. "You really have no idea, do you?" Behind her, the gate agent called out politely, "Dr. Thompson, we're rechecking your reservation now. Please wait just a moment." But Maya wasn't in a rush anymore. She looked out at the aircraft as it sat gleaming on the tarmac, unaware that the woman it had just humiliated would soon own every inch of it. And as the engines began to hum again, the tension that filled the air earlier didn't fade. It only shifted from humiliation to quiet, brewing power. Because this wasn't the end of the story. It was the spark. Soft fade, narration lowers tone. In just a few hours, that same flight attendant would learn a lesson she'd never forget. The tension in the cabin had thickened into something you could almost see. Heavy, unmoving, suffocating. Every breath felt measured. Every whisper carried weight. Dr. Maya Thompson stood by the aisle, calm on the outside, but inside her pulse raced. The humiliation had gone too far. She'd already shown proof. Her ticket, her ID, everything. And still, they doubted her. Rachel stood a few feet away, arms crossed, the corners of her mouth twitching with satisfaction. "Security is on the way, ma'am." she said coldly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Passengers shifted in their seats. Some pulled out their phones. Others stared straight ahead, pretending to read magazines, pretending this wasn't happening. But the quiet sound of camera clicks betrayed them. Maya's voice cut through the air, calm, even unwavering. "I've told you already, Rachel. My name is Dr. Maya Thompson. I paid for the seat. I've done nothing wrong." Rachel smirked. "Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about." A few passengers exchanged uneasy glances. A man near the front leaned to his wife and whispered, "This is getting out of hand." Before Maya could respond, 2 airport security officers entered the plane. One was tall and muscular, the other younger, his expression uncertain. The older one spoke first. "Ma'am, we've been asked to escort you off the aircraft." Maya blinked slowly, as if trying to comprehend how far this absurdity had gone. "Escort me? On what grounds?" Rachel interjected quickly. "She's refusing to follow crew instructions, sir. It's a disruption of flight protocol." The officer nodded, not because he believed her, but because that's what procedure demanded. Maya looked at him, her voice calm but laced with steel. "Officer, I haven't refused anything. I've simply asked that she recheck her system before accusing me of something I didn't do." The younger officer hesitated. "Maybe we should check again." But Rachel cut in sharply. "We've already done that. She doesn't belong in this seat." The older officer sighed. "Ma'am, please come with us." For a long moment, Maya didn't move. She looked around, at the passengers avoiding her eyes, at the woman who'd stood up for her earlier but now sat silent, her courage drowned in the sea of conformity. Then Maya nodded. "Fine," she said softly. "If this is how you treat your passengers, I'll step off." As she reached for her bag, Rachel said under her breath, "Thank you for cooperating." But Maya heard the mockery behind the words. As she walked down the aisle, people's phones rose subtly recording. Whispers filled the air like a storm about to break. Unbelievable. She must have done something. "No, I think she's the victim." Everyone had an opinion, but no one had courage. Outside the plane, the jet bridge felt cold, sterile. The sound of the air conditioning whirred like static. The security officers walked beside her, polite but distant. "I'm sorry for this, ma'am," the younger one said quietly. "I don't think it's right." Maya gave him a faint smile. "It's not your fault. You're just doing your job." But her eyes said everything. As they reached the gate, Rachel appeared behind her, hands on her hips, watching. "You can wait over there," she said, pointing toward a row of empty chairs by the terminal window. "If your ticket somehow checks out, we'll call you back." Maya turned to her, her tone even, her gaze unshakable. "You'll regret speaking to me this way." Rachel scoffed. "I doubt that." And with that, she turned and disappeared back into the aircraft, triumphant, certain she'd done the right thing. Maya sat down, the weight of humiliation pressing hard against her chest. She'd faced racism before, in meetings and boardrooms, in the quiet microaggressions of so-called polite society. But this was public. Her phone buzzed in her lap. She looked down, expecting a message from her assistant checking in on her flight status. It wasn't that. It was a message from the board. "Merger approved. Immediate leadership transition effective today. You're officially overseeing the new airline division. Congratulations, Dr. Thompson." Her eyes scanned the message twice, then a slow, deliberate smile crossed her face. The sting of humiliation began to fade, replaced by something colder, sharper, power. She straightened her posture, the composure of a woman who just remembered exactly who she was. The irony wasn't lost on her, being kicked off a plane she now technically owned. Passengers exiting the aircraft glanced her way, recognizing her from earlier. A few avoided her eyes, ashamed. Others whispered apologies they didn't have the courage to say aloud. And then Rachel appeared again, walking beside the captain, her voice hushed but smug. "Problem solved. We're clear to depart." Maya stood. "Actually," she said, her tone calm but commanding, "the problem is just beginning." Rachel froze. "Excuse me?" Maya smiled faintly. "You'll understand soon enough." The captain frowned, confused. "Ma'am, please, we really need to." Maya cut him off, voice cool as ice. You'll want to stay grounded for now. The captain blinked, unsure what she meant. But before he could ask, Maya's phone buzzed again, a call this time. She answered, her tone shifting professional ease. Yes, I'm still at the gate. Yes, I'll handle it personally. She ended the call and looked back at Rachel one last time. You should really be more careful who you humiliate, Rachel. Some people have longer reach than you imagine. Rachel's confidence faltered. What are you talking about? Maya didn't answer. She just walked past her, calm, centered, untouchable. The younger officer who'd escorted her off stood nearby. Everything okay, ma'am? Maya smiled at him, genuine, grateful. It will be very soon. As she walked away down the terminal corridor, the scene behind her blurred into insignificance. The plane, the people, the whispers. Every step echoed with purpose. The humiliation that once burned now fueled her resolve. Outside, through the vast glass windows, the aircraft stood still, the same one that had rejected her minutes earlier. She whispered under her breath, "You grounded the wrong woman." Her reflection in the glass looked back at her, calm, powerful, and unstoppable. And then her phone buzzed once more, this time from the company's vice president. Dr. Thompson, the message read, "Your leadership team is waiting for your arrival at headquarters. The airline staff reports directly to you now. Welcome aboard, Director." Maya's lips curved into faintest smile. The storm wasn't over. It was only beginning. Soft cinematic pause, low-tone narration. In the next few hours, Rachel and the entire crew would learn exactly who they had tried to humiliate. The terminal buzzed with the dull hum of travelers, rolling suitcases, coffee orders, muffled announcements. But for Dr. Maya Thompson, everything had gone silent. She sat alone near Gate 47, her hands trembling slightly around her phone, still replaying the humiliation burned into her memory. Moments ago, she had been treated like a criminal for simply sitting where she belonged. Now, her reflection in the airport window stared back, a woman wronged but unbroken. Then, her phone buzzed. At first, she ignored it. Probably another sympathetic message from a colleague who'd already seen the viral clip. But when the screen lit up again and she read the name Elaine, board office, her heart steadied. She answered. "Elaine," her voice cracked, calm but heavy. "Maya." "Thank God I caught you," came the breathless voice on the other end. "I know you're at the airport. You need to know something. The merger has been finalized. Effective immediately." Maya blinked. "The merger? Already? I thought we were still waiting for the executive handover." "No," Elaine replied. "The papers were signed this morning. You're officially the executive director of Horizon Holdings." Maya froze. Horizon Holding, her corporation, had just acquired Skynova Airlines, the very airline whose flight attendant had just thrown her out. For a long moment, she said nothing. The world seemed to tilt. Elaine's voice softened. "Maya, are you okay?" A slow, knowing breath escaped Maya's lips. "I'm more than okay," she whispered, standing from her seat. The energy in her voice shifted, controlled, steady, with an edge of steel. Elaine hesitated. "You sound different." Maya's lips curved into a faint smile. Just realizing timing has an odd sense of humor. She ended the call and looked around the terminal. People still stared at their phones, scrolling through what she suspected was now trending across social media. Black woman removed from first class. Cameras had caught every second, but none had captured what was about to happen next. The sting of humiliation turned into a pulse of purpose. Maya took a slow breath and exhaled, feeling her composure return like armor being refitted. Then, another call came, this time from a private number. "Dr. Thompson," said a deep, formal voice. "This is Mr. Reynolds from the Horizon Transition Team. We're waiting for your arrival at the Skynova Executive Lounge to initiate your first directive." Her gaze sharpened. "The Skynova Executive Lounge?" "Yes, ma'am. The board requested your presence immediately. They want your leadership to be seen from the start." Maya straightened her blazer. "Tell them I'm on my way." As she walked through the terminal, the sound of her heels echoed like measured drum beats, calm, precise, deliberate. The same passengers who had watched her be escorted out now watched her stride past with silent curiosity. She wasn't the same woman they had seen humiliated minutes earlier. Her phone vibrated again, messages flooding in. "Maya, I saw what happened. That was awful. You should sue them. Everyone's talking about it online." She silenced the notifications. Her eyes stayed fixed ahead, with a gold lettering above the lounge door read, Skynova Executive Suite. A uniformed attendant greeted her with a bright corporate smile. "Good afternoon, ma'am. May I see your pass?" Maya held up her ID, but this time it wasn't a boarding pass. It was her new corporate identification, gleaming with authority. The attendant's expression faltered. "Oh, Dr. Thompson. My apologies. Right this way, ma'am." Inside, the atmosphere changed. Hushed conversations, the scent of coffee and luxury leather. Executives turned their heads as she entered. One of them, a senior officer, rose immediately. "Dr. Thompson," he said with a nervous smile, extending his hand. "We've been expecting you. Congratulations on the acquisition." Maya accepted his handshake lightly. "Thank you. I understand I now oversee all Skynova operations." "Yes, ma'am. Including," he paused, uncertain how to continue, "the in-flight service divisions." Her gaze hardened slightly. "Good. Then let's begin there." As she sat at the head of the polished conference table, her mind replayed the smirk on Rachel's face, the dismissal, the insult, the quiet complicity of everyone who looked away. But there would be no outburst, no revenge shouted in anger. This was something deeper, justice through power, not emotion. She leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "I'd like to start my tenure by reviewing an incident that occurred approximately 30 minutes ago on Flight 218. A few uneasy glances flickered around the table. Someone spoke cautiously. "We've already been informed, ma'am. The video is trending. It doesn't look good for Skynova." Maya's lips curved into a thin smile. "Then we'll make it right. Immediately." Outside, through the tinted glass, the same plane that had thrown her out was still at the gate. The crew preparing for takeoff, unaware that the woman they had humiliated now held their fate in her hands. Maya rose from her chair, her eyes fierce but composed. "Let's make a few personnel calls." And as she stepped toward the window, the light hit her face just right, not as the victim of injustice, but as the architect of accountability, because what had begun as humiliation was now turning into reckoning. She took one last look at the plane below and whispered to herself, almost like a vow, "They took my seat. Now I'll take theirs." The automatic glass doors at Gate 47 slid open again, but this time the air itself seemed to shift. The same hum of the airport was still there, rolling luggage, boarding calls, idle chatter. But now, something about the energy was different. Eyes turned, whispers began. People recognized the woman who'd been escorted out less than an hour ago, the black woman who had been humiliated before their eyes. Only this time, Dr. Maya Thompson wasn't walking alone. She moved with quiet confidence, her stride precise, her gaze unflinching. Flanking her were two senior executives from Horizon Holdings and a corporate legal officer, carrying a slim folder embossed with the Skynova logo. Her black heels clicked sharply against the polished floor, a rhythm of authority. At the boarding gate, the same flight attendant, Rachel, was laughing with a co-worker, but as her eyes lifted and met Maya's, her laughter died in her throat. Color drained from her face. Passengers nearby murmured, "Wait, isn't it the woman they kicked off?" What's she doing back with security? No, that's not security. Those are executives. Rachel tried to compose herself, forcing a brittle smile. "Ma'am, I'm afraid this area is restricted." Maya stopped just a few feet away, her presence commanding yet calm. "Yes," she said, her voice low but powerful. "I remember." Rachel blinked, confused. "I beg your pardon?" Maya turned slightly, showing her identification card. Executive Director, Horizon Holdings. The gold letters shimmered under the fluorescent lights. The legal officer stepped forward, handing a document to the gate's supervisor. Effective immediately, Dr. Thompson is assuming oversight of all Skynova operational matters. Please gather your crew. The gate supervisor's hands trembled slightly as he read. He swallowed hard, then turned toward the intercom. All Flight 218 staff, please report to Gate 47 immediately. Rachel's jaw slackened. I don't understand. What's happening? Maya regarded her coolly. You will... Within minutes, the same crew that had escorted Maya off the plane now stood in a nervous line at the gate. The captain, the attendants, all fidgeting under the scrutiny of executives. Passengers nearby recorded discreetly. Cameras once again pointed toward Maya. But this time, the narrative had reversed. The senior executive cleared his throat. For the record, Dr. Thompson is not only a passenger. She is now your superior, the newly appointed executive director overseeing this airline's operations. The incident from earlier today will be reviewed immediately. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Rachel's hands clutched the edge of her service cart. She's our executive director? Maya turned her gaze directly on her. You removed me from my seat, claiming my ticket was fake. You dismissed my words, my credentials, my dignity, in front of an entire cabin. Do you remember? Rachel's lips parted, trembling. I was just following protocol. Protocol, Maya repeated softly, doesn't give permission for prejudice. Her words cut clean through the air. The silence afterward was heavy. Even the intercom seemed to hold its breath. The captain stepped forward, trying to regain composure. Dr. Thompson, if there's been a misunderstanding, we're willing to... Maya raised a hand, stopping him. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Captain. It was a revelation. She turned toward the legal officer. Please proceed. The officer opened the folder. Effective immediately, the flight crew of 218 is relieved of duty pending investigation. A temporary replacement crew will assume control before departure. Rachel's knees nearly buckled. Wait, are we being? Yes, Maya said calmly. Removed from the plane. It was poetic, almost eerily so. The very words Rachel had thrown at her now returned, like a mirror reflecting the truth she had tried to ignore. Passengers broke into whispers again. Some smiled quietly. Others just stared in disbelief. Rachel shook her head in panic. Please, Dr. Thompson, I didn't mean to offend you personally. I didn't know who you were. Maya's eyes softened slightly, though her voice stayed firm. That's exactly the problem, Rachel. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect. Rachel's tears glimmered as she stepped back, clutching her badge. The rest of the crew stood frozen, ashamed, silent, defeated. Maya took a breath, turning to the captain. You will cooperate with the replacement team and ensure the passengers depart without further delay. Do I make myself clear? The captain nodded stiffly. Crystal clear, ma'am. She gave a brief nod in return, then looked toward the passengers who had watched everything unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Please know that this company will be taking immediate steps to ensure no customer is ever treated this way again. Applause began softly. One passenger, then two, then a wave of clapping that filled the gate. Not loud or chaotic, but genuine, reverent. Rachel covered her face, tears slipping between her fingers as she and her crew were escorted away, the same walk Maya had taken only an hour before. But Maya didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply exhaled, quietly, letting the weight of justice settle. The senior executive leaned closer. Dr. Thompson, that was masterful. Maya shook her head. No, necessary. As the flight prepared for boarding under new staff, Maya glanced once more through the terminal glass. The reflection that stared back was no longer that of a woman wronged, but of a woman restored. And yet, beneath her calm, there was still fire, not of revenge, but of purpose. She turned to her assistant, who had arrived mid-scene. Get me a meeting with Skynova's training division, she said. We're rewriting every one of their conduct policies. The assistant nodded. Understood, Dr. Thompson. Where should we start? Maya looked toward the fading plane, engines humming softly in the distance. "Where it all began," she said, "at the seat of humiliation." Her voice was steady, her steps unshakable, because this wasn't just the return of a boss. It was the rise of accountability. And as she walked away from the gate, the whispers behind her weren't of pity anymore. They were of awe. The gate area, still echoing from the earlier commotion, now felt like a courtroom. Only this time, justice wasn't delayed. It was arriving in real time. Dr. Maya Thompson stood near the boarding counter, her posture tall and deliberate, her expression unreadable. Around her, executives and passengers watched in stunned silence as the legal officer arranged chairs and documents. The once chaotic terminal had become a scene of reckoning. "Dr. Thompson," the legal officer said quietly, "we've gathered everyone you requested, the captain, flight crew, and the gate supervisor." Maya nodded. "Good. Let's make this quick. I want every detail recorded." The staff sat uneasily before her, the same people who had laughed, judged, or turned away just an hour earlier. Rachel sat in the center, her eyes red from tears, hands clenched around a crumpled tissue. The captain avoided Maya's gaze, fiddling with his pilot's cap. Passengers nearby hovered at a respectful distance, some recording discreetly, others simply watching, captivated. Maya spoke with measured calm, her voice steady and precise. "This investigation isn't about embarrassment," she began. "It's about accountability. What happened earlier today wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a symptom of something deeper. And that ends here." Her words carried a weight that silenced even the whispers. The airline's regional supervisor, a nervous man named Douglas Crane, stepped forward quickly. "Dr. Thompson, perhaps we can handle this internally without such a public display." Maya turned to him slowly. "Internally," she repeated, her tone cutting but composed. "That's exactly how problems like this stay buried. I won't allow that." Crane hesitated, then stepped back, realizing there would be no negotiating. The legal officer began recording. "Proceeding with incident review, Flight 218. Statement 1, Flight Attendant Rachel Carter." Rachel swallowed hard and stood, her voice trembling. I believe the passenger's ticket was invalid. Her demeanor, I thought she was in the wrong seat." Maya tilted her head slightly. "You believed. Based on what?" Rachel faltered. You weren't dressed like most of our first-class passengers." The moment hung heavy in the air. The silence was deafening. Maya's eyes didn't blink. "So my attire made you question my worth?" Rachel's eyes filled again. "It wasn't meant that way, but it was received that way," Maya said softly, her voice firm. "And perception, Miss Carter, is a foundation behavior. You didn't just doubt a passenger's ticket. You doubted her right to be there." The legal officer looked up briefly, scribbling notes. The captain shifted uneasily in his seat. Maya continued, "Next statement." The captain cleared his throat. "Dr. Thompson, when the crew called me, I trusted their judgment. I didn't see the ticket myself. I thought it best to remove the passenger to avoid conflict." Maya's brow lifted slightly. "Avoid conflict or avoid accountability?" The captain's lips tightened. She took a step closer, her voice calm but piercing. "You escorted me off that aircraft without verifying facts. You didn't ask for identification. You didn't listen. You just followed assumption." The captain lowered his gaze. "You're right, ma'am. I failed to verify." The passengers watching murmured softly, their unease visible. Maya turned toward them, her tone shifting from authority to empathy. "How many of you saw what happened?" Hands rose slowly, 5, 6, then a dozen. A woman near the window spoke up, her voice trembling. "I recorded it because I couldn't believe it was happening. You were calm. You didn't raise your voice. But they treated you like a criminal." Maya nodded gently. "Thank you for speaking up." She looked around the terminal, her voice resonating. That's the part people never see. The quiet humiliation, the moments where dignity is stripped in silence while everyone else looks away. Crane cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Dr. Thompson will ensure proper disciplinary action is taken. But perhaps—" "Not perhaps," Maya interrupted smoothly. This will be documented, published, and used as a case study across all partner airlines under Horizon Holdings. We're not covering it up. We're confronting it. Crane's jaw tensed, but he said nothing. Rachel finally broke the silence. Dr. Thompson, I truly am sorry. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I thought I was doing my job. Maya's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. And that's what makes this so dangerous. When discrimination hides behind the words, doing my job, it becomes invisible, normalized. That's how systems fail. Rachel looked down, tears dripping onto her uniform. Maya paused, letting the silence linger, letting everyone feel the truth of it. Then she spoke again, quieter, but even more powerful. This isn't about punishing a few people. It's about dismantling a pattern. Every time someone like me is questioned, doubted, or dismissed for simply existing in a space we've earned, the system reinforces the idea that we don't belong. The legal officer stopped writing, visibly moved. Even Crane looked shaken. Maya took a slow breath. So here's what will happen next. A full sensitivity and equity audit across all departments. Every employee, from cabin crew to senior management, will undergo re-education, not a seminar, a transformation. Crane nodded stiffly. Understood. Maya turned to Rachel and the captain. You'll have a fair hearing. But whether you return to this company or not will depend on what you learn, not what you claim to regret. Rachel nodded, unable to speak. For a moment, the air felt lighter, not because the situation was over, but because truth had finally been spoken aloud. Passengers began clapping again, softly at first, then with growing force. It wasn't applause for revenge. It was for justice, the rare kind that unfolds right before your eyes. Maya turned to her assistant. Contact communications. I want this report made public within the week. Her assistant nodded. Yes, Dr. Thompson. She looked around once more, at the humble crew, the uneasy supervisor, and the passengers who had borne witness. Let this stand as a reminder, she said, that positions don't give people value. Principles do. And with that, she closed the folder, signaling the end of the review. But even as she walked away, the tension in the room didn't fade, because everyone knew this was just the beginning of something larger, the beginning of reform, the beginning of truth, the beginning of change. As the terminal buzzed back to life, whispers followed her, not of shame or scandal, but of respect. And in those murmurs, one truth was clear. Maya Thompson wasn't just firing people. She was rewriting history. The boardroom lights glowed dimly against the late-night skyline. Papers were stacked across the long glass table, filled with witness statements, policy reports, and complaint files that hadn't seen daylight in years. Maya sat at the head of the table, her expression steady but her eyes sharp. She was no longer just a woman removed from a plane. She was a woman who was about to expose an entire system. Start pulling every complaint from the last 5 years, she instructed calmly. Her voice carried the weight of command. No redactions, no filters. I want to see everything. Her assistant hesitated for a split second. Everything, ma'am? That's thousands of reports. Maya didn't blink. Then start tonight. The room went silent. The hum of the city below filled the pause, the sound of a world about to be shaken awake. Hours later, as dawn began to creep over the horizon, Maya sifted through pages of records, incident after incident, complaint after complaint. Different names, same patterns. A woman forced to deplane after a misunderstanding. A man labeled aggressive for asking about a seat. A teenage boy detained for looking suspicious. Her jaw tightened with every report she read. It wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a culture of quiet bias, disguised as procedure. She looked up at her team. How many of these were ever investigated? A young analyst spoke hesitantly, flipping through a file. Less than 5%, ma'am. Most were closed without follow-up. The words echoed in the room like a confession. Later that morning, Maya met with a small group of former employees. People who had left the airline years ago. They looked nervous but relieved to finally speak. A former attendant named Carla spoke first. We tried to report, she said, voice trembling. There were passengers, mostly people of color, who were treated differently. We were told to keep it quiet. Management said it was about protecting the brand. Another added, if we pushed too hard, we were labeled troublemakers. Some of us lost promotions. Some just left. Maya listened without interrupting. Every word, every pause, every unspoken truth added to the storm building in her mind. She realized this wasn't just about that single flight. It was about every voice that had been silenced to maintain a false image of perfection. Then came the stories from passengers, messages that flooded her inbox after the news broke about the incident. A father who'd been pulled aside for questioning before boarding. A mother who'd been accused of sneaking into business class. A young woman who was told her tone was too confrontational when she asked for water. Each message was another brick in a wall of injustice. Maya leaned back in her chair, reading them one by one. They all trusted us to take them somewhere safe, she murmured softly, and we made them feel small instead. In the days that followed, the investigation expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Media outlets began catching wind of the internal review. Reporters camped outside the headquarters. Hashtags began to trend online, calling for accountability. But Maya didn't seek revenge. She wanted reform. At a press conference, she stepped up to the podium in a crisp navy suit. Cameras flashed. The room buzzed with anticipation. I'm not here today as a victim, she began firmly. I'm here as a leader, one who refuses to let silence and ignorance define our company. What happened on that flight wasn't just an error in judgment. It was a result of a culture that chose comfort over fairness. That ends today. Her voice carried through the room, strong, unwavering, and deeply human. We are reopening every complaint. We're implementing new training. And for every person who was dismissed, ignored, or disrespected, I promise, your voice is finally being heard. The applause that followed wasn't just polite. It was powerful. Journalists leaned forward, some visibly emotional. Even critics had to admit it. Maya wasn't covering up a scandal. She was confronting it head-on. But behind the cameras, she knew the real battle was just beginning. Reforming a system meant challenging habits, confronting prejudice, and demanding change from those who resisted it most. That night, she stood alone in her office, overlooking the runway lights that glimmered like stars below. Planes were taking off one by one, symbols of journeys and new beginnings. Maya whispered to herself, this isn't about punishment, it's about purpose. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, strong, steady, unbreakable. She knew what came next, rebuilding from the inside out. By sunrise, the story had already exploded across social media. A short, shaky video filmed by a passenger, showing Maya being escorted off the plane. Her calm composure contrasted sharply with the flight attendant's cold expression. The clip was only 40 seconds long, but those 40 seconds would ignite a fire no one could contain. Within hours, hashtags began trending. Hashtag Justice for Maya and hashtag Flying Wild Black. Influencers, activists, and news anchors all joined the conversation. Comment sections overflowed with disbelief, anger, and solidarity. People demanded answers. They demanded accountability. Screens around the world replayed that moment over and over again. The moment Rachel told Maya to leave the plane. In a newsroom downtown, a journalist tapped her pen against the desk. Get me the full passenger list, she told her team. Someone on that flight is going to talk. And someone did. Multiple passengers came forward, confirming that Maya had done nothing wrong, that she had been calm, polite, and respectful. They described Rachel's tone as condescending and unnecessarily harsh. One even uploaded a longer video, showing the argument from start to finish. The truth was out there, raw, undeniable, and public. The airline's PR team scrambled to respond. Statements were drafted, edited, and rewritten a dozen times. But every hour they hesitated, the outrage grew louder. News outlets called it a defining moment for corporate accountability. Meanwhile, Maya stayed silent. She didn't post. She didn't tweet. She didn't appear on camera. Her silence spoke louder than any press release ever could. Behind the scenes, she watched the world react, not with satisfaction, but with reflection. She knew that this was bigger than her. This was about every person who had been humiliated, dismissed, or judged for something they couldn't change. Her assistant entered the room cautiously. "Ma'am, CNN just aired the video again. They're asking if you'll do an interview." Maya shook her head. "No, let the truth speak. I don't need to add noise." At the same time, Rachel's world began to collapse. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. Commenters flooded her social media with anger and disbelief. Old co-workers shared cryptic posts about toxic behavior in customer service. At first, Rachel tried to defend herself. She posted a message saying she was just following protocol. But the internet had seen too much. Every comment under her post reminded her of the footage, her dismissive tone, her smirk, her words. "Following protocol doesn't mean forgetting humanity," one reply read. Another said, "Now you know what it feels like to be powerless." In corporate headquarters, the airline CEO stared at the crisis report. Bookings were dropping. Shareholders were furious. A once-beloved brand was now synonymous with discrimination and arrogance. "How did this happen?" one executive demanded during an emergency meeting. The PR director swallowed hard. "It didn't happen overnight. It happened because we ignored the signs. She just exposed it. Everyone knew who she was." Days later, major news stations broadcasted a split screen. On one side, the viral video. On the other, a press release in the airline announcing a full internal audit, led by none other than Maya herself. Reporters gasped when they realized what that meant. The woman they had humiliated was now leading the reform. A CNN anchor's voice echoed over footage. In an extraordinary turn of events, Maya Thompson, the executive wrongfully removed from a flight, has returned, this time as the face of change. Public opinion shifted. Maya's dignity, her silence, and her strength had turned her from victim to symbol. She wasn't fighting the airline. She was transforming it. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Rachel sat alone, watching the news. The screen reflected in her tear-streaked face. Every headline, every tweet, every broadcast carried her name. She whispered to herself, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." But deep down, she knew it had gone exactly as far as truth needed to travel. Because this wasn't just about her mistake. It was about a system that had allowed people like her to feel justified in making it. Outside the corporate tower, protesters gathered peacefully with signs that read, "Respect is not optional. Every passenger matters. Fly fair. Fly equal." Maya watched from her window above, her reflection blending with the movement below. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just stood quietly, letting the weight of it all settle in. Her phone buzzed. A message from an old colleague. "You didn't have to do this. You could have walked away." She typed back, slowly and deliberately, "If I walked away, nothing would change." Then she placed the phone down and looked out again, at the people, at the signs, at the rising tide of awareness. For the first time in a long while, the airline slogan, "We take you higher," meant something real. Not just altitude, but integrity. And as the noise outside grew, Maya knew that the world had reached a turning point. This was no longer a PR disaster. It was a reckoning, one that demanded humility, justice, and reform. As she turned to leave the window, her voice echoed softly in the empty office. Let them see what accountability really looks like. The camera lingered on her silhouette, calm, resolute, and unshaken, as the scene faded to black. The boardroom was silent, the kind of silence that makes people shift in their seats and glance nervously at the clock. At the far end of the long glass table sat Maya Thompson, her posture calm but unyielding. The morning sun filtered through the windows, catching the edges of the corporate logo on the wall. The same logo that had once represented prestige and pride. Today, it symbolized something else, reckoning. Executives whispered among themselves. Crew members fidgeted. Even the captain, a man used to commanding skies, avoided Maya's eyes. She tapped the microphone once, and the room froze. "Let's begin." Her voice was soft but sharp, the kind of tone that didn't need a rise to be heard. The screen behind her flickered to life. A video clip played, grainy footage from inside the aircraft. Rachel's voice echoed through the speakers, cold, dismissive, and commanding. The crowd shifted uncomfortably as they watched the scene that had already gone viral across the world. The moment Rachel pointed and said, "Ma'am, you need to leave this plane immediately," filled the room like a ghost returning to haunt its maker. When the video ended, Maya didn't say a word. She just let the silence stretch until the weight of it pressed on every chest in the room. Finally, she spoke. "This is not an isolated incident. It's a reflection of a culture that's been tolerated for far too long." She turned toward the group of senior board members. Her expression was measured. Not angry, not emotional, but resolute. "Over the past week, my team conducted a full investigation into how this airline operates, how it treats its passengers, and how it protects its employees. What we found was disturbing." She pressed a button on her tablet, and a slide appeared showing a series of internal reports. Red flags everywhere. 37 complaints of racial profiling over the last 3 years. 12 reports of verbal harassment. 5 incidents where customers of color were removed from flights without just cause. Gasps echoed through the room. "And yet," she continued, "not one of these incidents resulted in disciplinary action." A male executive shifted forward in his seat. "Ms. Thompson," he began cautiously, "surely these numbers can't all be—" Maya interrupted, her tone unwavering. "They're accurate. Every record has been verified. Every name has been confirmed. You didn't act because you didn't have to. Until now." Rachel sat near the end of the table, pale and rigid. Her eyes darted between Maya and the paper spread in front of her. "Ms. Thompson," she said quietly, "I admit I made a mistake, but I never intended—" Maya raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "This isn't about intent, Rachel. It's about impact. You humiliated a paying passenger without reason. You assumed guilt before truth. You acted with prejudice, and the world saw it." Rachel swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Please, I've worked here for 10 years. I've given everything to this airline." Maya's gaze softened for a moment, not with sympathy, but with reflection. And yet, one moment destroyed what 10 years built. That's the power of arrogance when it goes unchecked. The head of HR cleared her throat nervously. What actions do you propose, Miss Thompson?" Maya took a slow breath, then stood. She walked to the front of the room, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Effective immediately," she said, her voice carrying through the air like a gavel striking wood. "The crew involved in this incident, including Flight Attendant Rachel Howard, Captain Miller, and the supervising manager on duty, are hereby terminated." The words landed like thunder. Rachel's eyes widened. "Terminated? You can't just—" "I can," Maya said, turning toward her, "and I just did." Rachel's breath hitched. The captain looked down at the table, saying nothing. "But understand this," Maya continued, pacing slowly. "This decision isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility, the kind that this company has avoided for far too long." She turned to the rest of the board. "Every employee here represents more than just a brand. You represent trust, the kind people feel when they step onto one of our planes. And when that trust is broken, it's not just bad PR, it's betrayal." A heavy silence followed. Some executives nodded subtly. Others avoided her gaze altogether. One of the older members leaned forward. "Maya, what happens next?" Maya looked toward the city skyline outside the window. For a moment, she seemed to weigh her words carefully. "Next," she said softly, "we rebuild, but this time with purpose. We'll launch a complete retraining program, mandatory for every crew member, every supervisor, every executive. Diversity isn't a workshop. It's a mindset." Her assistant handed out folders marked "Policy Reform, Immediate Implementation." "We're introducing new reporting systems, anonymous complaint channels, and direct accountability. No more cover-ups. No more silence. Every passenger deserves dignity, and every employee will be held to that standard." Rachel rose to her feet, her voice breaking. "Maya, please. You've made your point. Don't destroy our careers over one mistake." Maya turned to her, eyes steady, voice calm. "Rachel, When you asked me to leave that plane, you destroyed my dignity in front of hundreds. You made me a spectacle. The difference between us is I won't make you one. You can leave quietly." Rachel stood frozen for a moment, then slowly gathered her things. The captain followed. No one said a word as they exited the boardroom, the sound of the closing door echoing like a final verdict. Maya turned back to the remaining executives. "What happened on that flight wasn't just about me," she said. "It was about every person who's been told they don't belong, in first class, in boardrooms, in power. That ends today." Her words hung in the air, sharp and unforgettable. She sat down slowly, folded her hands on the table, and said the final words of the meeting. "We either rise together or we fall the same way they did." The room remained silent. No applause, no arguments, just the sound of quiet understanding, the kind that changes a company forever. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the shift happening in that single room. But inside, history had just been rewritten. And as Maya stood to leave, her reflection caught in the polished glass. Confident, composed, and unshakably in control, one thing was clear. Judgment had been delivered, and justice had finally taken flight. The storm had passed, but its echoes remained. After the firings, the headlines, and the public reckoning, the company stood at a crossroads. Some wanted to move on quietly. Others wanted change. But Maya Thompson, she wanted transformation. The morning after the board meeting, Maya stood in the vast atrium of the airline's headquarters, the same space once used to unveil new aircraft models and profit milestones. Today, it was filled with hundreds of employees. Flight attendants, pilots, mechanics, ground staff, all waiting to hear from the woman who had turned their world upside down. The air buzzed with nervous energy. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. And then Maya stepped up to the podium. Her presence commanded silence. "Good morning," she began softly, her voice steady. "Yesterday, this company faced accountability. Today, we begin rebuilding, not with slogans, not with press statements, but with integrity." Her eyes swept across the crowd, faces uncertain, some defensive, some hopeful. "This airline," she continued, "was built to connect people across the world. But somewhere along the way, we forgot how to connect with one another." The words lingered in the air, not accusatory, but honest. Behind her, a massive screen came to life, displaying 3 words in bold white letters: respect, integrity, inclusion. "These," Maya said, pointing to the screen, "are no longer just corporate ideals. They are our new foundation. Every training, every policy, every flight will begin here." She paused, allowing the words to sink in. Because a company is only as strong as the dignity it gives its people, both employees and passengers alike. A murmur rippled through the crowd, not dissent, but reflection. Maya clicked to the next slide, a new internal program titled Wings of Dignity. "This initiative," she explained, "will be mandatory for everyone, from senior executives to new hires. It's not a diversity class. It's a culture shift, one that ensures no one will ever be judged by the color of their skin, their accent, their clothes, or their seat assignment again." The room was silent. Every ear tuned in. "You see," she continued, "a plane isn't just metal and engines. It's a microcosm of the world. Every flight is a story of strangers sharing space, trusting each other to get home safely. And if we can't build respect in the sky, how can we ever claim to lift humanity?" Her voice broke slightly, just enough to reveal the emotion she usually hid so well. "I was humiliated on one of our planes, but that pain became purpose. Because change doesn't begin when we're comfortable. It begins when we're confronted." After the speech, Maya met with smaller teams in breakout sessions. Her sleeves rolled up. She listened, really listened, to her employees. A young flight attendant nervously raised her hand. "Ms. Thompson, some passengers can be cruel. They insult us, belittle us. What should we do then?" Maya smiled gently. "Then we hold the line," she said. "We stand firm in our professionalism, but we never let their prejudice turn into ours. Dignity is strength, not silence." Another pilot asked, "What if people think these reforms are too strict?" Maya's answer was calm but unwavering. Then they're free to find another airline. We're not just flying planes anymore. We're flying principles. Weeks passed, and change began to show. Posters across the terminals displayed the new company slogan, "Every seat deserves respect." Training rooms buzzed with open discussions. New reporting systems made accountability visible. And for the first time in years, employee surveys reflected something long missing: pride. Even passengers noticed a difference. On one flight, a woman of color posted a video showing how warmly she'd been treated by the crew. Her caption read, "This airline just felt different." That video went viral too, not for outrage this time, but for hope. Months later, Maya prepared for another business trip. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was once again boarding a flight from the same airline, sitting in first class. But this time, the moment felt different. As she approached the gate, the attendant greeted her with a genuine smile. "Good afternoon, Dr. Thompson. Welcome aboard." No hesitation, no questioning glance, just warmth. Maya smiled back. "Thank you." She walked down the jet bridge, each step echoing with quiet satisfaction. Inside the cabin, passengers settled comfortably. The crew moved with calm confidence, no forced politeness, just professionalism grounded in respect. When Maya took her seat, a young attendant approached nervously, holding a small envelope. "Dr. Thompson," she said softly, "our team wanted to give you this." Inside was a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for giving us a company worth believing in again." Maya felt her chest tighten, not with pride, but with gratitude. She looked around the cabin, remembering the last time she'd sat here, the cold stares, the humiliation, the isolation. But now, every glance that met hers carried warmth, empathy, and recognition. As the plane began to taxi, Maya glanced out the window. The clouds drifted lazily across the sky, reflecting the sunlight like silver sheets. Her thoughts drifted to the journey, the humiliation that sparked a movement, the confrontation that exposed truth, and the courage it took to rebuild something better. She whispered to herself, "Dignity. That's how we fly now." The engines roared to life. The plane began its ascent, the world shrinking beneath her. In that moment, Maya smiled, not because she had won, but because she had transformed something broken into something beautiful. The narration closes as the screen fades to the new company slogan, a testament to her leadership and vision, rebuilt with dignity, flying with humanity. And as the music swells, Maya's voice echoes one final time. Every seat holds a story. Every passenger carries worth. And when respect takes flight, everyone rises. Fade out. The clouds drifted quietly across the morning sky, soft, endless, and free. Inside the aircraft, the hum of the engines filled the cabin like a calm heartbeat. And there sat Maya Thompson, gazing out her window, her reflection merging with the clouds beyond. The world below was small now, cities, roads, and chaos reduced to patterns of light and shadow. Up here there was peace, but Maya knew peace had not come easily. This flight was different, not because of the destination, but because of what it symbolized. She wasn't the passenger who'd been silenced, humiliated, and forced off the plane anymore. She was a woman who returned, not for revenge, but for redemption. It's strange, she thought, how the same seat can hold two completely different stories. As the seatbelt light dimmed, the flight attendant approached. Not the cold, dismissive one from before. This woman's face carried warmth. "Dr. Thompson," she said softly, "we just want to say thank you for everything you've done." Maya smiled, her voice calm yet kind. "Thank you for flying with dignity," she replied. The attendant nodded, holding back emotion. "It's more than a job now. You made us remember why we serve." Maya watched her walk away, the sincerity in her words lingering in the air. The passengers around her had no idea who she was, and she preferred it that way. She didn't need recognition anymore. Her victory wasn't in headlines. It was in harmony. Outside, the sunlight broke through the clouds, scattering gold across the wings. The reflection caught Maya's eye, a symbol of resilience and clarity. She whispered to herself, "Some storms don't come to destroy us. They come to teach us how to rise." Her mind replayed everything. That humiliating day, the gas of the passengers, the look of disbelief on the crew's faces, and the weight of standing alone. But now, those memories no longer hurt. They had transformed into lessons carved deep into her heart. Dignity, she thought, isn't something others give you. It's something you carry, especially when they try to take it away. As the plane leveled off, the narrator's voice would weave gently through the scene, reflective, steady, full of quiet wisdom. Maya's journey wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, of respect, of worth, of humanity. She taught an entire industry that power means nothing without compassion, and that equality should never be optional. In a world obsessed with titles, Maya reminded everyone that true leadership begins with listening, and true dignity begins with self-respect. Maya opened the small window shade wider. Below her, the clouds parted like pages turning in a story she had finally finished writing. Her phone buzzed on the tray table, a message from the airline's board. Global Inclusivity Program approved. Launching worldwide next month. She exhaled softly, relief mixed with pride. A journey that began with humiliation had ended in transformation, not just for her, but for thousands who would never know her story yet would benefit from its echo. The captain's voice came through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now cruising at 35,000 feet. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the view. The line made Maya smile. Enjoy the view. She turned again to the window. The sun now sat low on the horizon, a molten orange ball, descending into twilight. Funny, she murmured. I used to think power was about altitude, but it's really about attitude. As soft music played to the cabin, the narrator's tone deepened, like a closing reflection after a long, emotional journey. Maybe Maya's story isn't just hers. Maybe it's a mirror, reflecting the quiet battles fought by countless people every day. People told they don't belong. People forced to earn the respect that should have been given freely. Her fight was for them too, for every person who's been judged before being heard, and for every voice that trembled but still spoke truth. The light outside began to fade, painting the clouds with streaks of violet and gold. The world below disappeared into night, but inside the plane, everything felt illuminated. Maya closed her eyes, resting her head back gently. We all have a flight to take, the narrator whispered. Some are literal, some are moral, but only a few have the courage to chart a new course, one guided not by anger but by grace. As the music swelled softly, the camera would pull back, from Maya's serene face to the aircraft gliding through the sky, leaving a white trail that faded into the sunset. The narrator spoke one final time, clear, calm, resolute. Dignity should never depend on status, wealth, or skin color, because the sky belongs to everyone. And when we rise with compassion, we all fly higher. Fade out.